make a Thanksgiving cornucopia. We're going to start with our magnolia greens here. I started separating my stem into smaller sections that I could break up around my arrangement. I'm going to start with this fanned out piece, and I'm going to point this greenery towards the back of my cornucopia because I want those leaves to kind of splay out towards the front. And then I'm going to go in with some more just to kind of round out the general outline of the arrangement I want to do. So I'm going to make sure to put nice fluffy stems coming off of the front and kind of falling forward more to elongate my cornucopia. Where I'm placing my magnolia leaves is the basic general or the size that I'm following for my arrangement. So I don't really want my stuff sticking out much more or my magnolia leaves sticking out too far. So this is the outline and kind of the shape I'm going to follow, and then I'm going to fill in with all the rest of my ingredients. So I started with the magnolia because it is the largest element that we're using and has a pretty thick stem. So we always try to start with your biggest pieces that are going to take up the most surface area first, and work your way down to kind of fill in the holes the best and to make sure that you have room for those bigger pieces. So now we're going to continue with our greenery. This is Nandina. Nandina is a great foliage to use. You can cut it from your yard. We do get it locally. And so you can break it up into smaller usable sections. Just make sure that you are cutting on that y-axis and keeping your pieces on the main stem as much as possible. You may have a few pieces that you can pull off and they are long enough on their own. But I'm just going to place my Nandina around the cornucopia kind of evenly. I just want to spread it out and add a little bit of a different size leaf in comparison to the magnolia. But I am kind of following the same shape and placement of my magnolia. I want to make sure that I leave large gaps and holes for my groupings of blooms. It's okay if you don't want to use all of your Nandina right now. You can save some for later. Next, we're going to use our Lacutho. So this is a really cool variegated greenery. It's called Tricolor Lacutho. So you should have, I believe, 4 stems of this. And so same thing, we're going to break it up into additional usable pieces. It is a lateral leaf, so you can cut anywhere down the stem to separate it on that y-axis and break it into 2 usable pieces. I like to tuck the bottom parts of my stem a little lower just for mechanics coverages, and I like to use the pretty tip of the foliage to kind of stick out a little bit more and add some shape. Sure you're remembering to cover in the back. Same thing, I'm just kind of placing this evenly around my arrangement. Right now I'm focusing on creating a nice fluffy nest to put all of my blooms. The curvature of the Lacutho is also really helpful in creating this lush shape. The final pretty tip of Lacutho, I want to make sure he is shining right here. There you are. So we've got a nice fluffy base. Time to add some of our flowers. The first flower that we are going to work with is going to be our kale. Next, we're going to use our kale. This is going to be the first bloom that we put in our foam. You should have 4 stems of this purple ruffled cabbage. This is an ornamental cabbage or kale. You might hear me call it either or. I love this purple center, but this definitely has a large, thick stem, so we want to go ahead and put it in first to make sure it has room. So you can see here I'm paring down my stem of kale. They have a lot of leaf growth at the bottom that you just don't need. It's just going to get in your way and prevent you from getting the face of that flower at the level you want it and into the foam. So go ahead and pare down your kale stems to your desired kind of fullness for the head, and then just place. You can also play with the sizes if you want a larger piece versus if you want the smaller, more delicate head. It's up to you how much you want to take off of your kale. These have a really thick stem, so you may have to cut through them a couple times to get all the way through. If you're using a floral knife, you can also kind of shave down the sides to thin it out. As far as length you should be cutting your stem, you ideally want at least a 2-inch insertion into the foam on all of your stems, and then you don't want the bottom of the bloom to be necessarily touching the foam because then you're going to block other stems from getting in. So I am leaving probably at least 4 inches on my stem from the bottom of the head of the bloom, but then I'm only inserting into the foam about 2 inches. So we're going to next get our first rose that we're going to use, which is these awesome purple moon roses. You should have 6 stems of these purple moon. They are this really cool kind of mauvey lavender tone. So roses have a multi-part step to cleaning them up to be able to put into your foam. So go ahead and remove all of the leaves and the thorns. Roses do have thorns, especially these purple moons, so be careful with that. And again, I am not leaving a lot of length on my rose head. I just want to make sure that I can insert it at least 2 inches and securely into the foam, and then I want to kind of place the height of my head in varying spots around my arrangement. I'm also removing any kind of like damaged guard petals that are on the outside of my rose. So we are using an even number of these roses, so I am going to kind of use them evenly around my arrangement. I just want this color to be seen from all angles. So we have another rose that we will get next. That is our ascot roses. You should have about 4 stems of these. And again, go ahead and clean up that stem so that it doesn't tear into your foam, and cut it short. And then these guys are naturally a smaller, tighter head. They really don't open very much, but they do last a really long time. So they're a great deep purple color. So we're going to kind of group these together. We're using 4 of these, which is a little bit of an odd number. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of create 3 placements for them to kind of create some asymmetry. So I want at least one of this like deep purple tone on either side of my arrangement, and so then I'll create a little clustering there at the front. Next, pull out your seeded eucalyptus. You should have one stem of eucalyptus, but what is so great about this seeded, it is fluffy, and you should be able to break it up into multiple little smaller usable pieces that you can spread out around your arrangement. Sometimes seeded can be really floppy, so I'm not going to leave it too long or sticking out too far because I want it to be supported by the other blooms and stems. This sagey green is a nice contrast to some of these richer colors. And don't feel like you have to use all of your eucalyptus right now. You can save a few pieces towards the end to fill in any gaps or holes you may have. All right, next get your blue ligustrum berry. You should have 3 stems of this guy, and it's not really enough to turn into 2 pieces out of one stem, so I'm just going to remove some of the bottom berry clusters and give myself a nice fluffy tip to work with. And then we have 3, so I'm kind of just going to spread them out in a triangle positioning, kind of 3 points around my arrangement. All right, finally we have our last rose that we're going to use. This is a razzmatazz rose. It's a new variety that we are loving. And you have 3 of these, so same, I'm kind of going to create a 3-point positioning of these roses around my arrangement, so there is some spacing between them. We don't have a lot of this kind of corally brick red color, so I won't be able to see it from all angles, but I can try and spread it out the best I can. But it adds a nice little color pop between the purples. Next, we're going to bring in some more of this warmer tone with these brown mums, sometimes called copper mums. But they have a nice rusty, kind of orangey brown tone to them that is going to kind of pull the center of the purple moons out more and also blend with the velvety backs of our magnolia. Mums are not everyone's favorite. They're a little controversial, but the heirloom varieties are gorgeous and perfectly seasonal this time of year. All right, next we are going to bring out our plum ranunculus or purple ranunculus, and we don't have too many of these guys, but it is a nice, rich, velvety, dark plum tone, and ranunculus are one of my favorites. They're a really long-lasting flower, so I want these guys shown off. I'm going to leave them kind of up front and forward and shown off in this. Ranunculus have a soft stem, so be sure to leave a little bit more length in case of breakage. And remember, you can always cut again, but you can't get any length back. Moving on to our last bloom of this recipe, you should have 2 of these gorgeous brown cymbidium orchid blooms, and they are in a water tube so that we can utilize more out of a single stem of cymbidium, and it's also easier to use them in an arrangement like this, in this size as well as in foam. So that is going to provide that little orchid bloom with a water source, and orchids are very long lasting, so they're probably going to be one of the longer lasting elements of your arrangement, but you can also continue to refill that water tube just to make sure. So I want to make sure that my petals are supported by the other blooms. The water tube isn't going to go too far into my foam, so I want to make sure that it is placed and sitting nicely to where it's held up. We have 2 of these, so I'm going to group them together as a focal point, kind of in the middle of my arrangement. Last but not least, let's add our wheat. You should have 5 stems, and this is just a really fun seasonal accent for the arrangement. You can kind of use them to exaggerate your shape and add some more texture and more of that bright sagey green. They have these really long hairs, so if you want to trim them down, you certainly can, or leave them long and dramatic. Thank you all for tuning in and designing along with us. We hope you have enjoyed all of these fresh seasonal products and have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye, y'all.